So these were the three aspects that I started just really organically focusing on every day. And within a crazy short amount of time, my life was beginning to change dramatically.
Welcome to Suburban Warrior, the podcast that will impact, inspire, and empower you to transform your mindset and become the badass warrior that you are. I'm your host and fellow warrior, Chrissy Pfeiffer, former clinician and corporate marketing exec turned multi-passionate entrepreneur, performance and life coach, and mom to four not-so-little warriors. Each week, I will bring you honest conversations with inspiring guests to share their stories of resilience, optimism, success, and simple yet effective strategies so that you transform your thoughts and change your behavior to get the results you want in your life. You will be empowered to take action, warrior up, and believe in you. Let's do this. What's up, warriors? Welcome back to another episode of the Suburban Warrior Podcast. I'm your host, Chrissy Pfeiffer, and I am thrilled to welcome my guest today because I think it's going to be an amazing conversation. We're talking things fashion, spiritual growth, feminine power, and all things that I just love talking about so much. And we're also going to talk about healing after trauma, which is so important for all of us to discuss. So I want to welcome to the podcast, Tara Marino. She is founder and CEO of Elegant Femme, a French clothing designer and a mentor for women returning to the truth of their souls worldwide. Years before she created the Femme Types, EF programs, or ran a multi-million-dollar business, she was a young woman in need of healing power. After tragically losing her newborn son, she turned inward, uncovering the beauty and abundance around her, and slowly but surely returned to wholeness. Miraculously, that journey revealed her life's purpose: to support women as they awaken the truth of their feminine souls. Countless experiences before, during, and after her healing journey, from obtaining degrees in international business, French, and psychology, to years of intensive IVF, to living in France with her family, to designing a clothing line featured in Paris Fashion Week. Each moment delivered her spiritual growth and feminine power. She now supports thousands of elegant femmes around the globe as they do the same through online programs and private mentorship. Welcome to the podcast, Tara.
Wow, Chrissy, thank you so much for having me. It's so funny to hear a bio read about yourself, isn't it?
It is really bizarre because I do feel like it's like, oh, wow, I have done all that. I mean, it is.
Yeah.
It's pretty incredible, though.
I think it's so cool for all of us to look back and just take a pause and think about, wow, listen to what I've been through, what I've chosen, where I am now. And there's so much transformation that can happen in such a short amount of time for all of us. So I'm happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me on the show. And I'm ready to go wherever we're called today, that it be of service, love, and touch every woman that it's meant to.
Wonderful. I love that so much. So let's get started by just telling my listeners a little bit more about you and start sort of, maybe we should start from when you started this healing journey. You went through a traumatic, I don't even know what to call it, a traumatic time of your life. And yeah. I can't even imagine what that was like for you. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about that time in your life and sort of what you were going through.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because even now, 22 years later, I can't even imagine it. Do you know?
Yeah. I do.
And when I hear it, and I think it's true for all of us, when we go through these intense defining moments, we move through them to the best of our ability. It's not something that we can prepare for. It's not something we can skip the grief line for. It's, these events in our lives that just, they shake us. They have this opportunity to crack us open. And this is certainly what it was for me. I was so excited to be a mom. It was like, I had been asking since I was a young girl, what's my purpose, God? Just tell me what I'm here for and I'll do it. And when I found out I was pregnant, it felt like the answer to all my prayers. It was like, okay, I'm going to be a mom. I can pour myself into this role, into this identity. I felt safe. I was like flourishing as a pregnant woman. I loved every minute of it. So when Mason passed away, I felt certainly the deep loss of a physical child, but I also felt this extreme loss of identity. Like, who am I? What the hell am I supposed to do with my life now? I was frustrated. I was angry. I was, trying to make sense of anything that I could. And it was a real full year of grief and anger and questioning that I went through that, led me to a new place of where do I go from here? But I
Yeah.
don't want to sugarcoat any of it. I was able to heal in an extraordinary way, and I have grown so much. But I do think it's important for all of us when we go through a deep defining moment that we take the time to heal, that we go where we are required to go. That whole first year, I was going to bed with Xanax and red wine.
Yeah.
And I want to mention that because seeing me on the other side, I think we do this as women. We see each other on the other side of these things, and we're like, oh, let me just skip to that part. But the
Yes.
only way I feel I was able to be where I am today is to really feel the depth and the intensity of everything that was there for me.
Yeah. And actually, that was the exact question I was going to ask. And you said it was about a year. I was going to ask like what that year was like, because was it, did you start right away saying, okay, what's next for me? Or did you, it sounds like you took that year in order to process and to grieve and to work through it and to go through that grief and trauma before you were able to even ask that question of yourself, sort of what's next for me?
For sure. I mean,
Yeah.
that first year, again, I had just turned 26. Mason was born the day before my 26th birthday. So I was young. I was just in a different state. And the only question that I was asking for like the first year was why me? It was a
Yeah.
very void type of question. It was filled with anger and frustration and self-blame and punishment and all of these types of things. And it was almost exactly a year that I was surrounded by lawyer paperwork. I was sitting on the floor. There was an opportunity to file a lawsuit. And I was asking that question, why me? Why me? Why me? And my ego was very, very quick to answer all the reasons why I deserved to be punished, all the things I had done wrong, like all of that. I think that, again, many of us can relate to. And in the silence, I heard this whisper that changed everything for me. And it was, Tara, stop asking why and start asking how. Like, how are you going to respond to this? And it
Yeah.
was the first point within that whole year that I had felt any kind of power. It was this first like little sliver of light that was like, hold on, I am still here. I don't like where I am. I don't like what happened, but I really can't change it. And neither is filing a lawsuit going to change this. So how am I going to choose to respond? And that was what changed everything for me, truly. That was where the Femme Types are born. That's what I've been teaching now for over a decade and a half. And it was just that point of choice that I know that we all have that might feel so far away from us, but it really is the most liberating thing that we have.
Yeah. So I want to go back because I think you made a really important point when you said, you were asking why, and your ego was so quick to answer.
So quick.
And, I think that recognizing that is huge. And I think that, recognizing that the ego is there to sort of punish and tell us, all the reasons why that are bad and why we can't do things. And it's that negative self-talk. And it was a year later and in the silence that you heard from, whatever people want to call it, your higher self, your intuition, your soul speaking to you and saying, it's time to stop asking why and start asking how. And I think, that's really powerful that you were able to distinguish between the two because it was a life-changing
Oh,
moment when you did.
yeah. And it was so clear to distinguish because the feeling inside was so different.
Yeah.
That berating kind of feeling that is asking questions that the answers are filled with more pain. Versus when that how came forward, which for me, that voice became the beginning of the indie femme type. It was soothing. It was based in a state of love, in a state of being, in a state of no matter what was going on in the outside world, I knew I was going to be okay. So
Yeah.
that feeling was so comforting that, yeah, I chose to listen.
Yeah. And I love that you define that as like the point of choice, that where you had the choice and you chose to start asking how. Okay, so then you started asking how, and Femme Types. Tell
Yeah.
us a little bit what that is.
Yeah. So as soon as I started asking how, it was like the best way that I can describe it is I started channeling. I started journaling every single day, asking, okay, how am I going to respond? What is this about? I felt like I was putting myself literally back together again. And so the first aspect that came through was the indie. And this was the femme type, again, that was based in the beingness. This was the feeling inside that no matter what, I was going to be okay. She came through as the femme type to support me in increasing my ability to receive, which was extraordinary. It was such a contrast from this ego voice that was, you're not deserving of anything, into this indie femme type of, there's so much more for you. There's so much more for you. So I journaled with the indie, that came through. I started connecting with this femme type every day. Shortly after that was the Frenchie femme type, which was based in pleasure, body image, relationships. And for me at that point, I had a pregnant body, I had a freezer full of breast milk, I had a C-section scar, and no baby. I hated my body. I didn't even want to take a shower. I didn't want to look down. And so this Frenchie femme type was this self-prioritization. This, for me, it started with just taking a shower, honestly. Um,
Start small. That's what we
Yeah,
say.
no, really. I mean,
Yeah.
that was the closest I could get to any kind of pleasure, to any kind of permission, to any kind of beauty in my life. So it did start very small, but it catapulted so quickly to what if you wear lingerie? What if you start sketching again? What, like these points of pleasure that I felt that I needed to deny myself of in order to mourn or in order to somehow rectify what had happened. And it was the exact opposite. So she gifted me, oh my God, so much permission. And then shortly after that came the New Yorker femme type, which is, so if we look at this in like hindsight, it was the being, the enjoying, which was the Frenchie. And then the New Yorker came through as the doing, the prosperity, the power. But what's really important to discern with the New Yorker is she's really about allowing. It wasn't about doing to get stuff done. It wasn't balls to the walls. It wasn't like come hell or high water. It wasn't that self-sacrifice exhaustion. It was really, can I give myself permission to allow myself to feel power again, to bring prosperity into my life? So these were the three aspects that I started just really organically focusing on every day. And within a crazy short amount of time, my life was beginning to change dramatically. I felt different. People saw it. My confidence returned. I just wasn't the same woman, not only after Mason died, but even before. There was just a different activation in my formula. And women started asking me what I was doing. And organically, that's how my entire business started.
That's really amazing. And I love that so much. I want to ask you, you know, prior to you going through this traumatic time, did you journal and channel before, or was this something that you started doing only after?
I have always journaled since I was
Okay.
a little girl. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
always been a part. I mean, I have journals, stacks and stacks of journals from when I was a little girl. So I've always found solace in that. It was a really comfortable thing for me to do. But this level of channeling, of trust, of really not just journaling my thoughts or what had happened that day or what I was feeling, but this new level of information that I didn't have any context for was brand new.
Yeah. And so the Femme Types, like the ones that you just described, which really sound all amazing, you know, the indie, the Feminine, Frenchie, and New Yorker. I love how you describe them. I love the combination of all of them. But are those femme types things that you creatively came up with and through channeling, or is it something that you found? Like, how did these femme types come into creation?
Yeah, it was through me.
Through
It
you.
was
Okay, right.
through
So
me,
these
through
are,
my channeling. Yeah, it's my
yes,
system that I created. But again, it was created just for me to heal myself on a
yes,
daily basis. And then other women who had lost children, I started coaching them and they would ask me, well, what are you doing? And I would
yeah,
say, I have my femme types, and they immediately related to all three femme types. So over time, recognizing that all of us as women have all three. And when
yeah,
we allow ourselves to align and be in sync with all three, it's game changer. It's a
yeah,
different level of balance and equilibrium. And the majority of women are operating on what we call like the faux New Yorker, that running on exhaustion, on adrenaline, just trying to get stuff done. And they have the Frenchie completely on the back burner.
yeah,
I'll save her for later, or feeling that she's selfish or materialistic or high maintenance. Like there's so many judgments about the Frenchie. And typically, when I have worked with women in the past, they have a tendency to want, like, just tell me about the New Yorker. I want to know about the power. I want money. I want prosperity. I want this. And it's always to start with the indie. It's always to base ourselves in that level of being and truth and real vision and intention that sets the stage for everything. So this
yeah.
is literally the system that I've been operating in since that day, and what supported me in creating an 8-figure business and moving across the world and having a fashion line and all of these things. It's really the simplicity of the femme types.
Yeah, I love that. And so is when, okay, I had a question. I'm so interested in all this.
Oh,
Okay.
I love it. I love it.
I know. Let me ask this question first. So are there more than three femme types, or are these the three femme types that are like the core, the basis of everything, right?
3 femme types, only
Three
three
femme
femme
types.
types. It
Okay.
does get quite involved in that every femme type has 9 layers. So when we're going into a deep activation of each femme type, it is,
Yeah.
really gorgeous and thorough. But there is a simplicity. And no, there are 3 femme types. They
Okay.
encompass us all. And then we do lead with a power femme, which we call our natural essence, which every woman leads with one, which she typically hides behind. But the basis is there are 3 femme types. And when we look at aligning with our femme types every single day, we're in the flow as women.
So let me ask you, what do you think the reason is that women hide behind their power femme type, like, or their natural femme type, or whatever the word you just
Yeah.
used? What do you think that's about?
It's
Why are we
typically
hiding?
Yeah, it's typically because our natural essence comes so easy to us. And we've been taught in this world that it's better to struggle, to sacrifice, to have challenge, to have
Mm,
blood, sweat, and tears in order to receive what it is we desire. So typically, at some point when we were younger, we were embodying the fullness of our natural essence, and someone made some sort of comment.
yeah,
Maybe you're too big for your britches, or why should things come so easy to you, or isn't this enough for you already? Something that had us hide that and say, oh my gosh, it's not supposed to be that easy for me. I'm going to go operate inside of this femme type because that's acceptable for some reason. So we have a tendency to hide our power and operate in another femme type that we've justified as more valuable.
yeah. Isn't that so true? Like, it's so impactful. It could literally be one thing that someone said to you that could like flip a switch at
Yeah.
some point in your life. And that makes you look at yourself in a different way, or, or it makes you act a different way. And that just carries on throughout your life until you intentionally start to realize that and look at that, which is really, really interesting that as women, we have a tendency to do that. I don't think men do that as much as women do.
I
I
don't
think that's,
know. I don't
yeah,
know. I don't really know, but I know that we have so much power that we do have that tendency to hide behind because we have been taught that we're supposed to struggle. And
yeah,
when we give ourselves permission to let go of that and really be in the truth of our own identity, it's miraculous. It really is.
it's amazing. Okay, so then tell us a little bit more about your story. So then you created these femme types. And through these femme types, you finding your authentic power each and every day through these femme types, you were able to start a fashion line, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So I started a fashion line. So first I went to fashion school. I have my degree in international business. And before the fashion line, my coaching business started and we were doing really, really well. It didn't make any logical sense to start a fashion line. It wasn't
Yeah.
like, oh, I have a lot of extra time, like a lot of extra money on the side. Everything that I've done in my life has really been birthed through desire. I feel like our desires are the impetus to our spiritual evolution. And so for me, this hunger inside that I've had since I was a little girl, I love beauty. I love fashion. I love beautiful things. And just like what we were talking about, that point of power that we typically hide. So I am a natural essence Frenchie, and that memory from when I was a little girl being told like, "Oh, stop showing us your ruffled tights." Like, just this image and this idea that if I love beauty, it was somehow not spiritual, or that I wasn't good, that I was
Right.
somehow selfish for loving beauty so much. So I hid it
Yeah.
for a really long time. So going to fashion school was really this opportunity to bring the femme types, which I had been coaching internally for so long, externally. So I poured the essence of the femme types, the beauty, the intentionality into every piece of clothing that we created. And we had our first fashion show in Paris, and we actually got a standing ovation from the Parisian
Aw.
press, which was like unheard of. But I did it my way. I put little signs on the tables called said I am beauty, because inside of every piece of clothing is a little tag only for the woman that says I am beauty. And the
Yeah.
Parisian press were on their feet holding that sign, because for me it was so much more than just a piece of clothing. It's an opportunity for a woman to remember who she really is.
Yeah. That's amazing. What is the fashion line called?
Tara Paris.
Tara Paris.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, congratulations. That is
Thank
so exciting. I mean,
you.
that sounds like a dream realized to have your clothing line appear at Paris Fashion Week. That's amazing.
It is. It's beautiful. And it's true for me in that I still continue to create really small, gorgeous collections and not get caught up in, oh, I have to do it a certain way, that it really is a beautiful expression of what I want it to mean, that it's intentional, that it's filled with beauty. Just like we just launched a perfume line and it sold out already. Like we have a waiting list. It's just that opportunity that we have as women to remember that we're creators,
Yeah.
that we're here to create. Yeah.
And so, what advice would you give to women who are listening and, feeling stuck, feeling like, maybe they're recognizing themselves in one of these femme types, but feeling imbalanced? Because I would think that, like you said, we all sort of embody all of this, but I would think throughout our lives, we probably lean towards one more so than the other at certain times. So, and the key I would imagine is to kind of balance it out on a daily basis. So, what advice would you give to someone who is feeling very imbalanced or very stuck and very unhappy with where they are?
Yeah.
How can they start implementing maybe, another femme type today?
The best place to start is really, we have a femme design assessment to support women to see actually where are they operating inside of their femme types. Because you're exactly right. There's a tendency to hide behind one or to get so used to operating in one that we forget that we have these other 2 points of power. As women, we know typically it's not so easy for us to ask for support. We find a way that works and we just do it on our own. It's a similar kind of example with the femme types. We find one and we operate in her and we forget that we have these other 2 points of power. So the femme design assessment, super easy, super simple, like 60-second quiz, but it spits out the exact percentage of where a woman is operating and lets her know, okay, these are the other two femme types that you're not taking advantage of. And this is exactly how you can come into sync. So we actually did create a special link just for your guests, which is
Ah,
elegantfemme.com. Chrissy, and your audience can go there and put in their information, take that simple quiz, and then find out like what fem type am I operating in? What is the percentage and how is it I can get back into alignment on a daily basis with all of my fem types?
I love that. That's amazing. Okay, so
Oh, good.
that was it's so good. I mean, I think that's fabulous. So it's elegantfemme.com/Chrissy. I mean,
Yes.
no, forward
Forward
slash
slash
Chrissy.
Chrissy. Yeah.
Yeah, forward
Forward
slash
slash Chrissy.
Chrissy. And just for all the listeners out there who don't know, Chrissy is spelled with no H. It's Crissy, just so they make sure they put it in right. Well,
Yeah.
that's wonderful. Okay, well, that's a
And it's
great way to
so
figure it out.
beautiful because you'll learn about each fem type. You'll learn about the depth. You'll also see how can you know if a fem type is out of sync. So you'll be able to see clearly, like, okay, these are the signs. So for example, if your Frenchie is out of sync, one of the big ways to see is you'll be operating in overindulgence or deprivation. Like the Frenchie
Oh,
out of sync operates in these extremes, superiority, inferiority, overindulgence or deprivation. So it's so powerful just to see where am I inside of my fem types and what are these simple things that we can honor on a daily basis that puts us back in the flow. It's like a relief when we're operating this way. We make it so much harder than it has to be. We really do.
I totally agree. And I think that, by sort of just being able to go inward and, to do an assessment like this and to be able to look at those different thoughts and emotions and start recognizing the thoughts that we're having on a daily basis. And because first, it's not just enough to even recognize them. Then we have to figure out where are they coming from. And I think categorizing them the way that you have is such a wonderful way to really start to understand really our soul and our spirit and where it is all coming from and tap into that in a very intentional way that we don't, because I don't think that many of us go through our lives on a daily basis with intention all the time. And so just really thinking about going through our thoughts and going through our emotions. And when they pop up, if something makes us angry or something makes us frustrated, sort of understanding a little bit the intention behind that. And why did I feel that way? It's just growth and helps us to get to know ourselves in a deeper way. And it's only until we do that that we can have deeper relationships and deeper friendships and deeper success, in everything that we do. So I think that's amazing. I love that you characterize everything that way.
Yeah, thank you. I absolutely agree. I mean, sometimes we think it takes a lot of time to be intentional, and it's the
Yeah.
exact opposite. If we do not take time to be intentional, we're actually wasting time. When we allow ourselves to be intentional and direct our days, our vision, our focus, and we're aware of what it is we're desiring to create, it saves us lifetimes.
Absolutely. So tell us, do you have a specific morning routine or something that you do that sort of sets you up for an intentional day?
Yes. So I created the Femme Flow list, which was so funny because it came through. I was having a call with a group of clients like years and years ago, and they were saying, well, Tara, tell us, like, what does your to-do list look like? And I was like, oh, I don't have a to-do list anymore. I have my flow to flow list. That's how the
Right.
whole thing got created. Again, these just organic principles that I was living by to support myself. So we have what's called a Femme Flow list, which is a morning routine and a evening routine. It's really the bookends of my day that I still do 22 years later, of
It's
connecting with
wonderful.
the indie to start in a really simple way. There are simple questions. It takes like less than 10 minutes for the entire day. So you connect with your indie, you set an intention, you ask your indie, who am I requiring to be today? Because the indie is really about remembering who we are. I
Yeah.
personally don't align with the becoming energy because it has a tendency to set me into a space of void. Like I'm not there yet. I have to become more. I'm all for natural evolution and I'm all for the more, but for me, it's the remembering of who I already am. It's that
Yeah.
connection with our identity. So we start with the indie and then we move into the Frenchie energy, which is really prioritizing joy and pleasure. Before we do anything that has to do with work, we're really flipping this on its head. That old paradigm of get all your work done first and then you can enjoy, we all know The work is never done.
Yes.
So that tendency,
Nope.
right, to keep putting it off. So then we move into the Frenchie energy. What is it that we require to enjoy that day? And then and only then do we ask the New Yorker, what is the one thing I'm here to allow? To get really clear on what that is and really move through the day in that energy from indie, Frenchie to New Yorker. And then we unwind from New Yorker, Frenchie, indie energy, ending the day with indie energy. The majority of women take back their laptop after dinner, like this activation of this energy of I haven't done enough. So instead, really setting the day in this beautiful organic flow that really supports our natural state as a woman.
That's amazing. I love that. And do you throughout the day, I love that bookend and starting and ending the day in indie. When you're flowing throughout the day and you're tapped into your own energy, obviously you've been doing this for a long time. When you feel like your energy might be off throughout the day, is there something specific that you do? Like, do you find how do you come back to your center in a way, or come back to your indie when you're feeling like something sets you off or you're not in the state of energetically where you want to be?
Yeah, there's a couple of different ways that work really quickly for me. One is the sensual breaths, which is really something that I created to put myself back in sync, like when I need it immediately. And it's a
Yeah.
simple breath in through the nose and out through the mouth with a really beautiful, sensual exhale. The majority of us run through life, and when we breathe, it's like we're catching our breath at the end of a race. It's like, let me breathe. And the
So true.
right? The sensual breath is
Yes.
so gorgeous. So it's like, I'll do one. I'll do one so
Yeah.
that you can feel it with me. So closing our eyes, and what I like to imagine is this beautiful ribbon, like cascading in through our nose, like all the way down. And what we call the power of sensuality, which is 2 to 3 fingertips below the belly button where the indie is located. So really seeing if we can allow ourselves to receive the breath that deeply. And then we release an sensual exhale, which for some women is like, oh my God, are we having a when Harry met Sally moment? Like, and it's so gorgeous because in of itself, it's pleasurable. So we
Yeah.
reconnect immediately with like, it's okay, we're safe to feel pleasure. So I'll do one. This is what it sounds like. And it might take me a minute because I really enjoy my breath. So, okay.
Okay. It's okay. Awesome.
And I'll do that like 3 times with my eyes closed, one for each
Yeah.
fem. And literally, when I open my eyes, it's like everything's brighter. I'm reconnected. And it's such a powerful breath because you can tell where you're out of sync. Like if your energy gets stuck higher up, if it gets stuck in your heart chakra, like there's all these beautiful ways to know if you're not aligning yourself with your energy.
Yeah. That is beautiful. And I think it's a wonderful, quick way to reconnect and to get back into your flow when you're feeling like maybe you're not. And you're right. I mean, there's so many times that we take deep breaths throughout our day, and it is like, okay, I'm good,
Right.
and so, but you're not. It's literally just taking, what was that, 20 seconds to close your eyes, hand on your heart,
And
reconnect
it
with your
feels
body.
so good. It feels
Yeah.
so good. Like that sensual exhale, like it really reminds us it's okay for us to feel good
It's
because
okay for us to feel good and be sensual
yeah,
as women, right?
exactly.
Yeah. Like
Exactly.
there's
Because we feel
nothing.
like, it's so amazing that how we upper limit ourselves from feeling good. Like
Yeah.
things start to go well for us in our lives. And sometimes it's like, oh my goodness, what's wrong? Is the other shoe going to drop? And so this sensual breath is a really beautiful way to train our nervous system to be okay with feeling good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think a lot of women ask that all the time. When is the other shoe going to drop? Anytime something good
Right?
happens. And it's like, why? Why does there have to be another shoe?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's amazing. Okay. So the deep sensual breath, anything else that you do that helps throughout your day to
If I
realign your
can,
energy?
if I can just close my eyes and meditate for a couple of minutes, if I'm in a
Yeah.
space where I can do that, it immediately resets me. Like
Okay.
just remembering who I am and why I'm here and what's really important. We all rush through this day and we, again, buy into the illusion that the more we do, the better we are, or the more
Yeah.
we do, the more valuable we are. And it's not until we slow down that we see these points of prosperity, that we see these treasure points. We have to slow down to feel it, to recognize it. So it's in that slowing down. But again, it doesn't need to take a long time. It can take seconds to just remind ourselves what our priorities are.
Yeah. And you're also giving us such great questions to ask because it really is in the question that we ask too, right? I know because again, just going back to the beginning of the podcast, when you said you were asking why me, it was really in flipping the question that got a different answer.
Yeah.
So I think that the questions that we're asking are so important. And, like you said, to take just a couple moments to meditate, ask the question, what is my priority? Why am I here? What am I meant to be doing right now? Like, resetting sort of that the ego mind that is driving us crazy all day.
Yeah. Asking the question and then also really listening.
Yeah.
This is where the indie
Yeah.
femme does come in because she incorporates the sixth and seventh sense, which is our sense of intuition and our sense of receiving. And sometimes we get used to asking the question, but not listening to the answer, or hearing it, but not wanting to listen to what's true because it feels
Yeah.
illogical or impossible for us. So it is in asking the question and then also really listening
Yeah.
inside.
That's a
Yeah.
great point. Great point. Well, Tara, I can't thank you enough for being here today. I had so
Oh,
much, I learned so much. I cannot wait to go and take my Femme assessment
yes.
because I want to know where I'm at. I sounds so wonderful and so fun. And I'm sure it's going to be very enlightening. So I'm really excited to do that for myself. I hope all my listeners take advantage of that and do it as well. And your website, again, is elegantfemme.com,
Yeah.
correct? If they want to learn more about these amazing femme types. And again, it's /Chrissy if you guys want to take the assessment, which I am going to do today. But thank you so much for sharing all of your light and love with us and sharing your story. I'm so very sorry that that is something that you had to go through in your life. But I am so grateful that you were here with us to share all of the amazing things that you're doing and to share these beautiful femme types with us that we all can relate to and hopefully, balance ourselves out with and get a little bit deeper with who we are and shine our lights brighter in the world so that we can do amazing things.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me here. And thank you so much for your questions. They were beautiful. And thank you for what
Yeah.
you're doing in the world, sharing women's stories and having us see each other differently so that we can connect in really beautiful ways. So thank you.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you very much. Well, guys, please be sure to check out Tara's website, elegantfemme.com. Go on and take the assessment at elegantfemme.com /Chrissy with no H. And we'll be back next week with another amazing suburban warrior here to share her story with you. Thanks so much, guys. Talk to you next week.